Hi Pratik, how are you?
Hi Gorka, I'm fine. How about you?
I'm fine too. Okay, so let's just start with a very quick introduction of yours, just so our audience knows you better.
Hi, I'm Pratik Singh. I'm currently a final year student of engineering. I'm doing an internship at Mercari, Japan as a CI/CD engineer.
Okay. What exactly is CI/CD or continuous integration and continuous deployment in layman terms? Let's say if a fresher student, anybody wants to know about CI/CD, what exactly is CI/CD? Or in other words, what are your daily roles and responsibilities when you're a CI/CD engineer?
Yeah, okay. So I'll first try to explain CI/CD in the simplest process as I can. So understand everyone has made projects, right? Or if you make a project, whether it be an HTML site or whether it be something else that you are building on. Now just imagine when there are multiple developers building on the same project. There is bound to be that different people will be working on different branches, different features, right? Continuous integration is one part of CI/CD. So what does continuous integration means is that whatever a developer is working on, whatever feature they are pushing into the production, they are telling that this is going to work, right? So CI is the part where we test that out, that the feature is not breaking the pre-existing features, or it is capable to go on to production or not. That is continuous integration. Continuous deployment is a different concept. Continuous deployment, as its stands, as it means that once the code that the person has written is built, is tested, and we are sure that it can go on to production, that's where continuous deployment comes in picture. So there are different practices that we do in continuous deployment. There is candidate deployment, there is AMP shift. So the point of it is that there is an existing project or product running on the production, right? Now we have to replace it with this new feature. You cannot just go ahead and delete the old one and put the new one, because there will be a lag. So what we do is that we partially do it. So a little bit of the users will get the new the new features, then the older ones. Many people will relate to this. You might have seen that there are some times that your friends gets an update on WhatsApp or Instagram app, but you don't,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Yeah, yeah.
that's the point that CI/CD does, that we expose the features to a part of users. We test that out, that okay, how is their feedback, or are they facing any issues, and then we change it for everyone gradually. So that's CI/CD in total that I can explain you. Coming to
Yeah.
my job role and my things that it comes is, so CI/CD in total has a lot of tools, right? There is Jenkins, there is Circle CI, then there is Tecton. It's really up to the company which prefers to use that. So my role is usually like building these CI/CD pipelines, or maintaining the already pre-existing like pipelines, and connecting those pipelines to Datadog, or connecting it to the Slack messages, so that we are alerted as Devops engineer that something is going down or some failure is happening. Right.
Would you like to explain pipeline a little more?
Okay, so pipeline, I would explain it in this way, that as I was telling, that there can be multiple developers working at multiple branches, right? So we have to ensure that the project has all the features, but it does not break. So pipeline, as I would understand, is that it's one stream of flow of river, right? A flow of river. There can be multiple tributaries that comes in, but there is still one single river. That's a pipeline. So pipeline is the place where we ensure that the product, the features that we are building is tested out, it's secure, it's not breaking any other features, it's not impacting any other developers. So that's the role of a pipeline.
Okay, so another question that I have is that relatively DevOps में बहुत कम लोग जाते हैं.
Correct.
मतलब if you look at web development, if you look at app development,
Yeah.
or let's say जो भी development हुआ, I've seen relatively DevOps में बहुत कम लोग जाते हैं.
Correct.
So what do you think according to you is the reason for that? Or मतलब are they scared, or is it difficult? Like what is the potential reason according to you?
So as I said, Gorika, the reason why a lot of people don't use, don't go for DevOps as the front, because there is, I truly believe this, that a person who has not started anything in computer science cannot one day wake up and say that I want to become a DevOps engineer, and he does not do anything and starts to learn DevOps tools. That way it won't work. There is a certain amount of prerequisite that you you have to know. Like you have to know a little bit about the how an API works, how a web app is made. These things are very much essential, to be honest, to get into DevOps, because we as DevOps engineers, our main motive is that the software that is already being built, we have to move it to production, make it alive to the internet, right? Making it public. That's our job, bro. But until and unless people understand how to build a product, they can't ship it out. That's one way that I see it. And another way, obviously, is that there is a lot of what you say trend around software developer roles, SDE roles, and these titles usually don't tell that what you are going to do, right? So people just blindly follow about that trend that I want to become a software developer, but they don't know what they want to do as a job. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and as DevOps comes is that you as a software developer will not directly get into DevOps until unless you want to be in DevOps, you will not land in DevOps. Right.
So what do you have to say about it? Should we get into DevOps? Should we not get into DevOps? Matlab, what are the perks? What are the drawbacks of being into DevOps? There is always one thing that you don't like about your job, irrespective of your role.
Okay, so pros, though I can obviously say a lot of pros about DevOps, but I will tell one thing to the public who is listening right now, that why to get into DevOps, or what's one reason that you should decide to get into DevOps. So I'll tell you one thing. When you're working, because I have been a software developer as well, I have been in companies where I have worked as a software developer, as a web developer. So when you're working at those companies, you just work at a simple feature or one project, right? A very small picture thing you will see. You might be just connecting something to the database, manipulating that data, and then moving it forward. You'll never understand how the whole product or the company works. Whereas in DevOps, this is the biggest perk of DevOps that I feel, that it's a bigger picture game. When you are in DevOps, you understand in and out how the product works, from the point that the request comes into the servers and it gets returned to the user. You know that throughout journey. Whether I have worked at Juspay, whether I worked at Hackerrank, I know the exact process how the request travels throughout the infrastructure. And that's a thing that is very much fascinating to me, because I understand that how this process is working, right? And in DevOps, this is one pro thing that I can motivate anyone to get into. If I have to tell about one downside, is that obviously if you talk as a fresher, then there are a lack of opportunities as compared to generic software developer roles, or going into front end development, back end development. There are a certain less opportunities, but that's okay, I guess, because DevOps as a role needs a little bit of more experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, by the way, a very good way to plug in your achievements. And
No, I just told because I can relate, the public can relate
Yeah.
to it. That's
no, I love it. And it's not bragging if it's based on facts, right? So, okay, so in your personal experience, why DevOps and not Dev for you? Yeah.
Why DevOps and not Dev? So, see, when you're working at DevOps, right, it's not like you're not write code. It's absolutely not that. Let me burst that myth for you. On a personal level, I still write a lot of code. Just the difference it comes is that when a software developer writes a code, they are just manipulating some text or some data or some images into some other format, right? Whereas when I write code, I am impacting some machines, some actual computers, some actual load balancers, some actual databases. So my APIs or whatever I write as a code, it affects the infrastructure level. Whereas when a developer writes a code, it just affects a product on a very small level, right? I'm not going to say that software developer is not a good job or DevOps is the best job. That's not like it. It's just my personal choice that I prefer to learn on the bigger picture. I like to see that how the whole product plays out. If you are a person who likes to just work on one piece of code, that's absolutely okay for you. But in DevOps, the best thing about DevOps is that you get to wear multiple hats. You also write code, you also manage infrastructure, you also get to write scripts. It's not like that just one thing you have to do.
Yeah. It's almost like DevRel roles. You'll also have to code.
Correct.
You'll also have to manage communities. You'll also have to create content.
Correct.
So that's also very interesting.
Yeah, right, correct.
Okay, so the major question is, What if someone wants to get into DevOps? So, what do you think, according to you, is the ideal roadmap, or what tools do you recommend? कि ये तो आने ही चाहिए. These are like mandatory rules to get into DevOps.
Correct.
And what do companies ask, right? What is the demand?
Correct. So first of all, roadmaps is not a thing that I solely believe in, because I believe in failing and learning, right? Because you
Right.
keep on failing and then you learn, and that's a much better way to go about it. But okay, if I
Right.
have to tell that how is an ideal way to get into this industry, so first of all, I would definitely again say someone should know how the at least back-end development works. It does not matter which language you learn, whether it be Django in Python, or Eco in Golang, or Node.js, does not matter. At least have an understanding about how an API is built, how an APIs are called, how a database is connected. Have the basic understanding at least. I'm not saying to get a pro in this, but at least have a have something project ready. Once you have
Yeah.
done that, then actual is the journey of a DevOps engineer starts, because
Okay.
up till that point you're not a DevOps engineer. So
Yeah. You should know how things work.
Yeah, correct.
To say the least.
Yeah, correct. So at this point forward, now you have to learn. First of all, it's very necessary to learn Linux, because whichever company or wherever you're working on, you will be communicating with Linux machines only, or Linux containers, Linux-based containers. So Linux is a must. I'm not saying to get a very much pro into it, but make yourself as comfortable as with the CLI you can. Once you're done with Linux, then you should move on to since I told you that you should know how to make projects. Now it's the time that you learn Docker. Docker is a must learn or must know tool in this industry, because when it comes to microservices, everything is Dockerized, and everything is running in containers, right? It's not like someone is running one microservice in one experience. It's not like that. Once you have done these two, then I would not say to directly jump into Kubernetes, because many people do this, but you'll feel a lot of lost in that tool. So next would be that you go and learn any one particular cloud. It does not matter. You learn Google Cloud, you learn Azure, you learn AWS. Personally, I have felt that Google Cloud is much more easier. Azure is also good. AWS kind of is not very beginner friendly, that I feel, but yeah, their documentation is great. So it's like here and there. You can learn any cloud. And when I say learning cloud, is not that you learn every service of it. I don't think any Google engineer can say that they know every service of Google Cloud. They have like at present, I think they have 166 plus services. So no one knows all of it. So what you have to do is that you learn the top 10, the basic tools in the industry, like the EC2 instances, load balancer, S3 buckets, Route 53. These things you learn and understand what they work, what they are. Once you feel like you're comfortable with the cloud, that's the time you go ahead with Kubernetes. Kubernetes is going to take a lot of time in your life. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, because that tool is actually a way where most of the industries, that most of the application that you are interacting with today is running on, right? So it's very complicated in itself, but yeah, if you have done your previous work, it will get simpler. It will get simpler for sure. And I'm not going to say that you'll get comfortable with Kubernetes, because I still am not. I still struggle with Kubernetes. I'm still learning. But yes, once you have a little bit of experience around Kubernetes, that's the time that you learn other observation tools like ELK, Prometheus, Grafana. There are these some tools that you should just know how to install and utilize. I'm not again saying that become pro in any of these. Coming back to what is asked in the industry, so what I have feel majorly is in DevOps there is two things that are majorly asked of. It's not even it's because no one I have encountered till now in an interview that they have told me that build a Grafana dashboard. No one says that, right? So what they usually ask is about your projects. So if you are a fresher who is getting into DevOps, please make good projects. If even if you are making a to-do list app, does not matter. If you have used all the DevOps practices in it, that's a good project, right? If your project is containerized, if you can say that this has secure, it has logging architecture, it's a good project for DevOps. And then it comes up to the experiences, of course. And most of my experience, my past experiences helped me a lot. But yeah, that's all about it.
Okay, yeah, I agree to the fact when you said that projects are super important, and people do look at what all frameworks have you used, what all features have you implemented. Like I had an interview wherein the interviewer also asked me कि okay, you have used this particular framework, how does that function, how does the backend of that particular framework function. And I never looked at that way, right? Because I was supposed to make a project out of it. I got the product, and then I had nothing to do with it. मतलब not nothing to do with it, but I never looked at it that way कि okay, इसका backend कैसे
I
काम करता
understand
है.
that.
And I think that is a lesson that I learned from that interview, that you should always know how a particular framework works. So that is something I really wanted to put it there for people to know कि you should know how frameworks work. You should at least have a basic idea कि पीछे क्या technologies use हो रही है. So yeah. Okay, now that we've talked about the roadmap, what are some mistakes you made that you think you shouldn't have made, or what are some things that you wish you had done better?
This
Yeah.
will be a very long podcast if I start counting my mistakes. So yeah, but I will tell the top 2-3 things that I have learned over the way from my rejections, right? So very first thing that I tell to my juniors and whoever I interact in this industry is that first of all, you have to realize that a rejection in this industry is as common as the air we breathe, right? So don't ever take any rejection personally. Don't think that this was my sole reason that I did not get it, right? I will tell you a story around it so that you can relate to this. So I'm not going to disclose the name of the company, but I was interviewing at one of the companies, and that is still one of my dream companies. So we went till the final round. I was in my final round. I had got the interview link for the HR interview as well. So if you are in the technical field, you know that when the HR interview comes in, you know that your role is almost done. You just have
Yeah,
to,
99%.
yeah, correct.
Absolutely.
Almost 90-95% you are already in. Now just the HR interview is left, right? And HR interview, usually if you have done a lot of interviews, HR interviews go smooth. So the interview was tomorrow, and today evening I get an email that this HR interview has been postponed for 2 weeks. That was very weird to me because I have been in this industry. I said this is weird. After 10 days or something, I get a rejection email, and after that my HR contacts me and he tells me that he told me on a very long email that what happened, that recently at that time Twitter had done the layoffs, and the job role which I was applying for, a same person who was working at Twitter for 4 years applied for the same job role, and he got it, right? And at that point I can't, although it was my dream company and everything, but I did not do anything wrong. That was nothing under my control that I could have done at that position, right?
Yeah.
So that one thing that initially I used to do that. Initially I used to take rejection very personally. That's not a healthy way to do it. Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. So one thing I will definitely say is that always if you face rejections, always if you face failures in life, I'll tell you this: analyze it very deeply. Maybe not that day, maybe not that week, but after a while, sit down and analyze that what were the things that went wrong according to you, and try to fix
Yeah.
those things, right? A lot of people don't do this,
Yeah.
right? Another thing that I would like to say is that apply and apply and apply. Don't think twice before applying. I have applied to very weird jobs and given many shady interviews. Like I don't even account for that. Right? But there is no downside of applying to any company. There is no downside that as I feel it, right? See, because if you get an interview, right? Getting an interview is difficult. That's there, right? That's out there. If you get an interview, sitting for that interview is never a downside. If you clear it, right, you get an offer. That's good. If you don't even clear it, you get two things out of it. First is that interview experience. You know that okay, how is interviews going, and you get prepared for it mentally, and you know how to talk about it. And next is that you get to see why you fail. What is the questions that you were not able to answer? Because in interviews, it usually happens that they answer the things that you are most confident about. That's how an interview works. If I tell that I am confident about Kubernetes, they will ask questions about Kubernetes. And if I'm not able to answer them, that's the point I realize that okay, these are the holes in my knowledge, right? These are the loopholes that I still have to cover. So these two things I will definitely say that don't take rejections personally and keep on applying.
Yeah. And another way to look at it is I've read this somewhere, or I've seen this in a video, they mentioned कि if you do not apply, your chances of getting in are absolutely
Yeah,
zero.
correct.
But if you do apply, your chances of getting in are 50 by 50.
Correct.
Right? So obviously you want to choose the second option.
Correct.
नहीं हुआ, you always learn from, and every interview before your selection interview is a mock interview.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Correct.
right? So that is something I've learned the hard way. But okay. Okay, so you mentioned that you're interning at Mercari, Japan. So how did you apply for this job role? And like you mentioned previously, you should just apply. So how did you apply for this role, or were you reached out by someone from the company?
No, so and usually in my past, most of the companies that I have given interviews, and it has been that HRs contact me at this point. But for this company, it was not like that because they are an international company and I'm still a college student. So I saw the opening at LinkedIn. It was very simple process. I saw the opening at LinkedIn. I went on their career website. I applied simply with my resume. I work on my resume very much, so I had my resume built already. So I put down my resume. I filled out all the forms, and after that, I got my first online assessment test. That was pretty easy. I will definitely say not pretty easy, but in the terms of people who are into competitive programming or DSC will understand. If I have to say, it was lead code easy or medium, maybe between that. And if you are into code forces, then you will understand it was level B or A, not more than that.
Okay.
So that was a good set of questions. 2 or 3 questions I got in an hour. 2 or 3 questions. I'm forgetting a point now. After that, I had 2 technical interviews. So the job role was very very particular to CI/CD engineer, as I mentioned earlier. So there were 2 technical rounds, and both were solely focused on CI/CD pipelines, my past experiences, the tools that I have used. And so first round was both of the rounds were for 2 hours. First round was with one of my seniors, and this next was with the manager. So both 2-hour rounds.
2 hours each?
Yeah, 2 hours each, almost 2 hours each.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah, so definitely it was a very lengthy and a very detailed explanation that I went. But yeah, I will definitely say it was not like a college vibe. It was not like they were question answering. No, it was like a conversation.
Yeah.
So it was easy to it was easy for them as well, and it was easy for me as well. And then comes the HR interview. That happened. That was like 30 minutes, and then I had the offer.
Okay, wow, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so like you mentioned, you should just apply. What are some other ways, other than the traditional ways of applying to jobs? What other ways do you prefer, or do you think are good ways to apply for jobs,
So
especially DevOps?
yeah, so I'll tell you the different ways that have worked for me. I will not tell you the ways that I know but doesn't work. Right? So
Yeah.
I'll definitely say that finding and applying on LinkedIn is the first thing. That is very first. It works flawlessly for me, at least I will say. Next that works for me is that going on to websites like which mentions see, on Google you can search anything, right? So why don't you search and use that time to search something fruitful? Like you can search the remote companies. Suppose I prefer remote companies, right? So I go on and search top 20 remote companies in India, top 20 this companies, and I will get a list, right? And once I get a list, I can go to their career page. Obviously, all the companies have career pages. You can go and check for openings. That's one way to go about it. There are multiple things like you can check the Y Combinator list, that what startups they are funding. Same for other investors as well. You can find that out. You can have a look at Crunchbase as well. So these are one way to find about companies and then apply. So this helps me. Other than that, one more approach that helped me was that having a public profile. Like I keep on building in public. So if anyone knows me, they know. I started back in 2020, I guess, around COVID. That time I started, whether it be Twitter, whether it be LinkedIn, I have been active on both. And at this point, what happens is that because the algorithm, I have tweaked the algorithm this way that they know that I'm a person into DevOps. So most of the HRs contact me. So that is an automated process, but it takes time. You can't,
Right.
yeah, you can't say that it will happen overnight. But yeah, at this point, I can say that a good number of HRs contact me regarding the job offers. And last one thing that worked for me, it is very less chances that it works, I know, but my Juspay internship I just got because of a cold email. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so there if you go onto Juspay's website, there is a contact us email ID, and I did nothing.
Okay.
I was college second year student, and I did nothing. I just took that email ID. I put down the subject that I need an internship, something like that. I don't remember at this point. A cover letter, a well-written cover letter with my resume, and I sent it to them. They replied back in like 20 days or 25 days. but I didn't got the job that way. So cold emailing is another way that surely works.
And you mentioned you were a second year student back then.
Yeah, at that time I was in
So
my
what?
second year.
So what all did you have on your resume, if you'd like to?
I had one web development internship that I had done at a very small startup at that time, and I had a few hackathons and a Lift scholarship, and that was a Linux Foundation scholarship that it happens. So I had done that. So that was pretty much it. It was not a very good resume, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fine. You were just a second year student, and that is an amazing resume in my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, so last but not the least, any additional tips or advices for anyone who's trying to get into DevOps or would like to get into DevOps in the near future? Anything.
So if anyone is trying to get into DevOps, right? One thing for sure, don't get overwhelmed by the number of tools that are present in this field. There are literally a lot of tools. When it comes down to at least software development that I've seen, there are only a handful of languages. There can be Golang, there can be Java, C, JavaScript. Like you can count a handful, 10 or 12 languages at max that are actually running on production. I'm not talking about languages that are like brainfuck language that is there. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about languages that are running on production. So that's a handful. But when you come into DevOps, there are a lot of tools. Even for a very small thing, you will find like 5 or 6 tools. So don't get overwhelmed by that. You don't need to learn each and every one of them. You just learn one. If you learn one, and that skills and whatever the concepts are there that are transferable over the tools are usually built like that. So if you know how to use Prometheus and Grafana, it's not like you cannot use ELK. You can use ELK. You have to learn a little bit more. But yeah, that's one way to go about it. Other than that, I would definitely say one thing is that when you're trying to get into DevOps, don't always think that I only have to learn DevOps. It's not like that. It does not work like that. Because at a point you will see that because what happens is that sometimes it happens that the software developer, what he or she wrote, right, that's not running in the container. We suspect that the container is running bad, but when we see the logs, we see that okay, no, the code that was written, that does not handle the cause error, or it does not handle this. So at that point the previous learnings definitely help you a lot. So learn a little bit of web development, have at least an understanding how the internet works, right? How APIs are working. If you have that knowledge, it will help you throughout the process.
Absolutely. Okay, that's about it. Thank you so much, Pratik, for taking out time. I know you're very busy, but thank you so much for taking out time and doing this. This was such an insightful conversation, and I'm sure a lot of people will learn a lot from this. But even if one person learns from it, it's always worth it.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you
And
thank you for having me, Gorika. That's great that I got this opportunity to share the views and insights. As you tell, even if it helps one student, I'll be glad about it.
Yeah, and I'll add all of Pratik's handles in the description. And if you still haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us create more such content. And share it with your friends, share it with your family, to whoever you think this would help. And like, share, and subscribe. Bye.